I was standing in my own attic when I heard her say it through the floorboards. It's all junk. Just hire someone to haul it away. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I just stood there holding the painting she'd already thrown out, the one that had just been valued at $310,000. She never once thought to ask what I was holding. If you are new here, please subscribe before we go any further, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I read every single one, and I mean that. My name is Nova Lewis. I am 69 years old. I spent 34 years in the Greenville County Public School system in South Carolina. Started as a classroom teacher and eventually became a principal. I won a statewide recognition award in 2009, which mostly meant I got a plaque, a handshake, and went right back to work Monday morning like nothing happened. I live in Beaufort now, about an hour and a half south of Greenville, close to my niece Aria. I am telling you this story because I spent most of my adult life letting other people decide what I was worth. And I want to talk about the first time I stopped doing that. Martin was my husband for 38 years. Electrician by trade, retired early, spent his days reading on the front porch and puttering around the house, fixing things that did not always need fixing. He never threw anything away without turning it over first, holding it up to the light, setting it back down. He would say, "Not yet, just not yet." He died 3 years before any of this happened. Sudden heart attack, a Tuesday morning in October, gone before the ambulance even pulled into the driveway. I am not going to spend a lot of time there. I have done most of that grief already. But I want you to know who he was before I tell you what came after. Does that make sense? To need someone to still be present in a story even after they are gone. 34 years of running a school had made me someone who holds things together. I knew how to sit across from an angry parent, manage a budget that was never enough, and keep a room full of tired people moving in the same direction. What I did not know how to do was ask for help. After Martin died, I kept the house, kept the garden, kept the calendar. I told myself I was fine. Most days I almost got there. Jack is our only son. He lives up in Columbia with his wife Layla, about 2 hours north. After Martin passed, they started coming down more often, and I was glad for it. I thought that was what family does. You lose someone and you pull a little closer. Looking back now, do you ever wonder how many signs you missed simply because you wanted so badly to believe something good? Layla walked through my house one afternoon that first year, and it felt less like visiting and more like measuring. She stopped in the front hallway, looked up at the ceiling, and asked me offhand what houses in this neighborhood were going for these days. I said I had no idea. I had not been paying attention. She nodded and moved on like I had given her exactly the answer she was looking for. Jack mentioned once, gently, that a one-story place might be easier for me as I got older. I told him I climbed stairs just fine. And then there was Aria. Aria is the daughter of my younger sister, who passed 8 years ago. She lives in Charleston, and she checks on me more than anybody. She called one evening and said she had noticed Layla asking questions about me, the kind of questions that did not quite add up to just caring. I told Aria she was probably reading into it. I told her Layla was just thorough. I believed that when I said it. I wanted to believe it, which is not quite the same thing, but it felt close enough at the time. It was a Saturday afternoon in late April when Jack and Layla drove down from Columbia to help me clear out the attic. I had been putting that off for 3 years. Every time I thought about going up there, I thought about Martin's boxes of old electrical manuals, the fishing gear he never used quite as much as he planned to, the careful way he labeled everything in black marker. I was not ready. When Jack offered, I said yes before he even finished the sentence. Have you ever said yes to something mostly because you needed someone else in the room with you? Layla moved fast. That is the word I kept using in my head that afternoon. Fast and efficient. because those were kinder than the other words that kept surfacing. She sorted things into 2 piles on the plywood floor without asking many questions. The discard pile got large. I stood back and watched it grow and told myself this was help. This was exactly what I had asked for. At some point, she reached into the corner where a few old frames and canvases were stacked and pulled out a cloth-wrapped rectangle, maybe 2 feet by 3. She turned it once in her hands, the way you handle something you have already decided about, and set it on the discard pile. She said the cloth was moldy and it was too old to bother with, and they should just let the haulers take it. I do not know exactly what made me walk across the room and pick it up. Maybe because my mother had owned it. Maybe it was something Martin would have done. That thing he always said about not letting go of something until you actually knew what it was. I just said I wanted to keep that one. Layla shrugged and moved to the next corner. I carried it downstairs and leaned it against the wall in my bedroom and did not look at it again that day. A week later, Jack and Layla had been back in Columbia for several days when I noticed Jack had left his tablet on the kitchen counter. I needed to look up my car insurance and thought his device might be faster than mine. The screen came on already open to his email. I was not trying to read anything. I was reaching past it when the name caught my eye. Greg Harmon, Harmon Realty Group. I stopped. The subject line said something about market comparables. I read enough to understand. Jack had written to this man asking about home values in my neighborhood. He described the house, the square footage, the lot. He said his mother had not made a formal decision yet, but they wanted to have a sense of the numbers. His mother had not made a formal decision yet. I set the tablet down on the table, the same table I have sat at every morning for 22 years, and I read that line again in my head. Not made a formal decision, as if a decision were already moving through the world with my name on it, and I was simply the last to be told. What do you do when you realize someone you love has been having a conversation about your life without you in it? I did not call Jack. I did not text Aria. I sat there until the light through the window changed and the kitchen got dim, and then I got up and made myself a cup of tea I did not drink. That night, I lay on top of the covers with the lamp on. The painting was still leaning against the wall near the window in its old cloth, and I looked at it for a long time. The house was quiet the way it only gets when you are the only person in it. No sounds from the next room, nothing moving downstairs. I picked up my phone once and set it back down. There was no one I wanted to call at that hour who could hold all of it with me. I had spent 34 years standing in front of children, telling them that being underestimated was not the same as being worth less. Third graders who felt invisible. Teenagers who had been told they were too slow, teachers who doubted their own ideas. I believed it every time I said it. I had just never thought to say it to myself. I got up sometime after midnight and unwrapped the painting. I peeled back the cloth slowly, set it against the dresser, and stepped back. It was a river scene, dawn light on the water, colors softer than I expected, but still holding after all those years. In the lower right corner, small enough that I almost missed it, was a signature, Harold Sims, and the year 1971. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and typed that name into the search bar. The first result was a gallery page out of Charleston. One of the most significant painters of the American South in the latter half of the 20th century. Works held in private collections throughout the Southeast. Then I found a page with recent auction results. I read the numbers. I closed the laptop and sat with both hands around my cup and did not move for a while. Have you ever found out that something you almost let go of was worth more than you imagined? I called Aria that afternoon, told her I needed her to drive up from Charleston on Saturday and go somewhere with me. She asked what was going on. I told her I would explain when she got there. She did not push. She just said she would be there by 9. Saturday morning, we carried the painting together to a small gallery on Main Street that specialized in Southern art and estate appraisals. The man there was named Robert Calloway. Around 60, reading glasses on a cord around his neck, the unhurried manner of someone who had been looking at paintings his whole life. He set it on the examination table and went to work. He turned the canvas over, studied the back of the frame, used a magnifying glass on the brushwork, checked the signature for a long time without missing anything. Then he straightened up and asked me if I knew what I had been keeping in my attic. I told him I genuinely did not. He said the work was from Harold Sims's strongest period, the early 1970s, and that pending full verification, his initial estimate was somewhere between $280,000 and $320,000. Aria turned to look at me. I kept my eyes on the painting. Neither of us said a word for what felt like a full minute. I thought about Layla's hand reaching into that corner without slowing down. I thought about the discard pile on the plywood floor. I thanked Robert Calloway and told him I would be in touch. Aria and I walked out into the afternoon and started toward the car, and she went quiet for a moment before she said she wanted to tell me something. She said her mother, my younger sister, had told her the story of that painting once. Our mother had bought it in 1971, not because she knew who Harold Sims was, not because she thought it would become valuable, but because she had walked past him on a rainy afternoon, sitting outside with his work and no one stopping. She used her first real savings to buy it. She told my sister she did not know if it was beautiful. She said the man just needed someone to see him. I stopped walking. I stood on the sidewalk and did not try to say anything back. Some things you have to let settle before you can speak. Do you think the things we hold on to without knowing why always have a reason behind them? I did not reach out to Jack for 2 full weeks. When he texted, I told him I was fine, that I had been working in the garden. That was true, but I was also doing other things. I went back to Robert Calloway and completed the formal appraisal. $310,000, certified, signed. I printed the email chain between Jack and Greg Harmon and put it in a blue folder on my desk. I called my old colleague Dorothy, someone I had worked alongside since my first year in the classroom, and asked her for the name of a reliable estate attorney. Just to have it. Dorothy did not ask many questions. She has known me long enough to recognize when I am being careful. And I asked Aria to write down what she had overheard Layla say to Jack the previous month. A remark that had seemed odd at the time, but now made sense. Layla had said, "If you can't sell the house, how are you going to handle that debt?" Aria wrote it out, signed it, dated it. When I told Aria about the email to the realtor, she went quiet in that way she has, putting pieces together. Then she told me something she had heard weeks earlier. Layla on the phone, saying that Jack did not know all the details and just needed to sign what she put in front of him. I sat with that for a long time. Jack had not built this plan. He was a man who had gotten into financial trouble he was too ashamed to name, and Layla had decided she knew the answer and moved forward without giving him the full picture. That did not excuse what he allowed, but it told me who I actually needed to talk to. I called Jack on a Wednesday evening and said I would like him and Layla to come down that weekend. Said I wanted to talk about a few things around the house. He sounded relieved. His voice had that particular ease of someone who thinks the hard part is behind them. I said I would see them Saturday. Friday night, I carried the painting into the living room and set it against the wall below the front window. Unwrapped, for the first time in the full light of a room where people actually lived, the river colors caught the lamp differently than they had in the bedroom. I stood there a while just looking at it. They arrived at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. I had coffee ready, curtains open, the painting right where I had put it the night before. Aria was already in the armchair near the bookshelf, tea in hand, quiet. She was not there to say anything. She was just there. Layla's eyes moved across the painting for a second when she walked in, the way your eyes move across something that does not register yet. And then she sat on the sofa and crossed her ankles. Jack sat beside her. He had the look of a man who had rehearsed something on the drive down. He talked about the house, the size of it for one person, the market being favorable right now, how they just wanted what was best for me. His voice stayed even. He sounded reasonable and completely like someone reciting. Did he believe what he was saying, or had he been saying it long enough that it had started to feel true? I let him finish. Then I opened the blue folder on the coffee table and slid the printed email chain across to him. I did not explain it. I let him read. I watched his face change, not all at once, the way something cools, gradually and then completely. He set the pages down and looked at the table. I placed the formal appraisal beside the email, told him the appraiser's name, the gallery on Main Street, and the number at the bottom of the page, $310,000. Then I turned and looked at the painting on the wall. I told Jack that was the piece Layla put in the discard pile, the one she said they should let the haulers take. Layla opened her mouth. I looked at her and said quietly that I was speaking with my son right now. She closed it. I turned back to Jack and asked him if he wanted to tell me about the debt. He did not answer right away. The silence said enough. I told him I was not angry that he had run into trouble. People run into trouble. What I was angry about was that instead of coming to me and saying so, he had let a plan move forward that involved selling my home, the house his father and I had built our lives in, without anyone asking me a single thing. Those were two very different situations, and I needed him to understand that. He nodded. He did not say much. I did not need him to. The following week, I called Greg Harmon at Harmon Realty, told him I had no intention of selling and had never authorized anyone to contact his office on my behalf. He apologized. He did not know. I kept the call short. Jack and Layla went back to Columbia without the solution they had come looking for. I did not intervene in their finances. The consequence of what they had done was that they had to face their own situation themselves, which is what should have happened from the start. A few weeks later, I asked Jack to have lunch, just the two of us, at a diner we used to go to when he was in high school. When the food came, I told him the story of how my mother bought that painting. The rainy afternoon. Harold Sims sitting outside with no one stopping. What she had said to my sister, that the man just needed someone to see him. I watched Jack's face while I said it. I did not ask him to respond. I did not explain why I was telling him. I just set it down between us. In September, I sold the painting through a gallery in Atlanta that Robert Calloway connected me with. In November, I sold the house in Greenville. I signed the contract myself at my own kitchen table with my own pen. I moved to Beaufort just before Thanksgiving. Small house, one story, a front porch that catches the morning light, a garden in the back with room for roses, and a few tomato plants come summer. Aria is 20 minutes away. She comes over most Sundays, and we sit on the porch until it gets cool, then move inside and keep talking. In February, I started a free reading program for children at the Beaufort Community Library 2 mornings a week. I used part of what the painting brought in to fund a small arts room at the same building, a space for local artists and children's workshops. I asked that it be called the Sims Room. The library director thought that was a fine name. I thought my mother would have liked it. I am not going to tell you I have it all figured out. I do not, but I will tell you this. My mother bought that painting because a man needed to be seen. She did not know what she was holding. She just knew he needed someone to stop. I spent a long time not extending that same simple recognition to myself. And I am glad, more than I can say, that I reached into that discard pile before anyone else made the choice for me. If you have ever held on to something that someone else told you had no value, whether it was a person, a decision, or something you kept in a corner without knowing why, I want to hear about it. Leave it in the comments below. And if this story stayed with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it today.